seconds. Right, so let me just get into the camera. There we go. I'm just going to sit over here. Hi everyone, and welcome to our very exciting interview. We have Major Luca Parmitano from the Italian Air Force and of course the European Space Agency. And we're going to chat a little bit about whether or not you are an astronaut or a cosmonaut or a Euronaut, if you can call it that. We're going to find out a little bit more about your adventures in space and all the wonderful things you've done. We have guests from South America, from the USA, from India, and I know that we have quite a few people who are going to be viewing it live on YouTube as well. We also have quite a few of your followers from Italy, because you are, of course, Italian, and they are quite excited. We've had people emailing questions through. We also have a live audience here, and some of them want to ask some questions. So we're going to get straight into it, and I know that even Mrs. Morgan has just joined now with her grade 2s, and I know they've got lots of questions as well to ask. So we're going to kickstart with asking you a bit. We're going to ask you a very simple question. What on earth made you want to go into space? I mean, where did it all start?
Well, actually, you said what on earth made me want to be an astronaut. So really, nothing on earth wanted me to make me want me to be an astronaut. It's everything else that makes me want to be an astronaut. Everything off the earth. I think I've always wanted to be an astronaut. I could not have been older than the younger ones in the room in front of me when I first formulated this into a conscious thought that I wanted to be an astronaut. And you know, I think that most young people would.
Sorry.
Yeah.
There's a phone going on. Okay.
Sorry, there we go. It's muted. Okay.
Sorry, I couldn't even hear myself. So I think it's a combination of things. I was born in 1976, quite a long time ago, and so I grew up in a time, the 80s, where in Italy we had popular Japanese cartoons that talked about space, astronauts. We had the first launches of the space shuttle, and so those were highly televised, even in Italy. And so those images were in my eyes, and I think I always thought that being an astronaut and floating in space and wearing one of those very cool white spacesuits would be interesting, and that's where it all started.
And then of course, you know, once you have a dream to become an astronaut, you have to do certain things to make that dream happen. So in terms of studies, what did you study to bring you closer to that dream?
I think I've been very lucky in my studies, in general, in my working career, in my studies. I did not really pick my job or my career so that I could become an astronaut. I kind of followed what I really loved and what I really liked, and it just took me closer and closer to being an astronaut, just by virtue of what it was. I didn't think growing up that I could be an astronaut. I'm from Sicily, from a relatively big town, but really far away from where things happen, because Sicily is in the middle of the Mediterranean, not very far from North Africa, and it's not a place where you talk about space and becoming an astronaut and flying. So I grew up with the dream of being an astronaut, but I'm not sure that I really believed it could be possible. But I was lucky in my growing up, because I loved to study, I loved math, I loved science, I loved engineering, and I kind of took the path that would lead me closer to those things that I really liked. And I always wanted to fly. So when I was 16, I won a scholarship to be an exchange student in the United States. And I think a lot of what happened later started right there, because my host father was a navigator, an F-18 navigator in the Marine Corps, or the United States Navy, and or Marine Corps. and he got me really fascinated with how cool this person was and in his job. And that's when I really thought, I think I want to be a pilot, a military pilot. I want to follow that path. And so when I came back from the United States from the exchange year as a high school student, that's when I applied for the selection to enter the Italian Air Force Academy. That was really that was the moment that really changed my life, because once I entered the Air Force Academy, I started on a very definite path. I was going to be I wanted to be a pilot. I wanted to be a military pilot. As a matter of fact, I wanted to be a fighter pilot because I thought, well, first of all, it had to be really cool to be a fighter pilot. It sounded like something fun to do, and it also opened other doors. And I knew from the very beginning, once I entered the academy, that I wanted to be a test pilot. Now, in the Italian Air Force, it's not a given that you can become a test pilot. If you want to be a test pilot, you have to be on top of your class. You have to come from the fighter squadrons. And so I kind of put all my efforts into being both of those things. I wanted to be on top of my class. I wanted to be a fighter pilot. I just managed to be lucky enough to make that happen. And in the meantime, though, I just had a lot of fun. I never thought, okay, this is just my next step to be this. I really enjoy being a fighter pilot. I really enjoy being a test pilot, and magically it all worked out for me to take the right steps to be an astronaut one day. Okay, so now let's try and trace it. You obviously dream about space, but you don't really think that it's going to happen, and then all of a sudden things start falling into place, and you end up being a fighter pilot. From what I've read, you're pretty much quite a competent fighter pilot and a test pilot, which means you've flown not just one particular plane a few times, you've flown many different types. What are the most exciting planes or jets you've ever flown? That's a hard question. Every pilot and in general loves the machine that is most proficient in, just because it's the one that professionally gave you the most. So I really liked flying with my squadron on the AMX, which is a small single-seat, single-engine fighter built in Italy, and I have over 1,000 hours of flight on that airplane, so it's definitely one that is close to my heart. When I became a test pilot, funny story here, I was assigned to the rotary wing section of the test squadron, which is helicopters basically. So I had to dual qualify both on fixed wing and rotary wings, and I can tell you that some of the most exciting stuff or scary stuff that I did was on helicopters. And man, helicopters are scary machines, but they're also really fun to fly.
Well, now, I also noted that you had a close call with one of your flights. Is that correct? I'm sure you had many close calls, but one in particular that you even won a medal for. Is that correct?
Yeah, one became. I had many close calls because I'm an ordinary pilot. I mean, I'm definitely not Chuck Yeager, but who is a very famous pilot. And so as an ordinary pilot, I made many silly things that one of those things that seemed like a very good idea at the time, but they are not. And so I had many close calls. One became very famous, and actually it wasn't my fault for once. And
so tell us about
that. In 2005, so almost 10 years ago, I had a bird strike. I was flying over the British Channel, and I ran into a stork. I didn't know it was a stork at the time, but then they told me that it was a stork. So a pretty big bird. And I was flying around 500 knots at the time, which is quite fast. It's about 900 kilometers an hour at about 30 feet above the water. And at that speed, even a bird is a cannonball, and so it smashed into my airplane. It destroyed my cockpit. It broke my helmet, covered me in bird's interiors, which, by the way, smells like fish. Interestingly enough, and then I basically had no visibility because the shield, the windshield was completely fractured. It was completely glazed over, and so I had to land blindly after trying to find my way back, which was hard to do because I lost my maps, I lost my charts. Everything flew out of the cabin because of the impact and the depression and the pressurization, and so I had to fly in the blind, and I chose to go back to where I started, which was in Belgium. So it took me about 35 minutes to fly back with a damaged airplane, and then I had to land it blindly using peripheral visions and instruments, and that's why the Air Force was nice enough to give me a medal for that. They usually you have a 50-50 chance in those cases. Either they punish you or they give you a medal. So I was.
I'm glad they chose the latter. But I mean, it obviously goes without saying that from a problem-solving point of view, that is critical in the work that you do. And in terms of that particular situation, normally you train for scenarios that could happen. Do you ever train for a situation where a bird's going to take out your windscreen and all your instrumentation, and that you have to land blindly?
Well, you cannot train for every specific situation, and it would be crazy to think that you can. And in my operational years, I've come to the conclusion that the only real emergency that you run into is the one you cannot prepare for. All the other events that can happen, you can have a leak, you have a hydraulic fluid leak, or your engine is damaged, or all those things. You have a checklist, and you can train it because those are things that we can think of, we can prepare. But the real emergency is when something happens and you just have. There is nothing. There is no way that you can prepare for it, and this will become more clear even later with my event. Now, the thing that comes out of this experience is exactly that: is experience. So, by training for a situation that you can think of, you develop patterns. You develop a way of thinking. You also develop confidence in what you can do, in what your system can do, and in what your instructors tell you to do. And that's the way we solve the problem. You have the tools to solve the problem. You have the instruments, and then in any situation you can use those instruments by applying that, using that in the way that need to be used in that specific situation.
Okay, sure. So, I mean, obviously, being in a jet is very, very exciting, and you must have done some very exciting maneuvers. Have you ever done a full backflip or something to that effect in a jet?
A backflip inside the jet?
Well, no, I'm not you inside the jet. I'm saying the jet. Have you ever made the jet do something? I mean, you watch all the movies. And sometimes they show maneuvers where they're flying, and I can try and demonstrate if I can come into the camera. They go flying, and then they literally come to almost a vertical stop, and then the planes go past them, and that's how they attack from behind. Is it only the movies?
So I think there is only one movie that shows that maneuver.
Okay, all right. I was just checking.
I think it's called Top Gun, and it came out sometimes in the middle of 1980. So.
No, we all know about Top Gun.
Yeah. So that movie. Let me tell you a couple of words about Top Gun. Great movie, lots of fun. you know, as many people in my generation, it really inspired us to want to be fighter pilots. But there are a few things. I mean, we never. I wear polo shirts all the time, but not under a flight suit. And also, we do not wear cowboy hats with our
but in Italy, you wear chef hats. Is that correct?
I don't wear hats.
Oh, you don't wear hats. Okay, I'm just checking. Not much to hold on to. So now, you obviously are doing very well in the military, and you're enjoying flying the planes, and you're obviously making a good impression because someone's taking notice of what you're doing. Did they approach you and say, listen, we would like someone with your skills to come and join us at NASA? Or did you say, you know, I've got all these skills, why don't I go and approach them and see if I can get involved?
So first of all, very important, I do not work for NASA. I work for the European Space Agency. So,
okay. So we've got to correct that. So did you approach them, or did they approach you?
Well, they certainly didn't approach me. That doesn't happen. No, the way it works is that ESA came out with a selection process. They came out with a campaign where they wanted to select a new class of astronauts. Europeans had been waiting for a long time for this new selection to come out. The previous time had been in 1992, and then in 2000, when I was 16, so it would have been hard for me to apply. But in 2008, they came out. First, they said, okay, in the next few months we will come out with a new selection process, and then they did everything by internet. So if you wanted to apply, you went to their web page, and any person from belonging to one of the countries that are part of the European Space Agency could apply. And so they had, in 2008, they had over 8,400 valid applications, and then that's when the selection process started, in May 2008.
So what do you think you brought to the table that managed to push the others out of the list or out of the way for you?
I put everything on the table. Everything. Everything. I put you know, my skills I put down that you know, how many languages I spoke, how many that I was married with kids, and that I lived abroad, that I played with Lego, with that anything that made sense to me. I just put it on that application.
And did you Google to see what sort of questions they might be asked on the application and the kinds of things that you should actually put into the application?
I did not. You know, I trusted what my experience told me. At the time, I already had been selected as a test pilot, which is a comparatively hard thing to do in Italy. In the Italian Air Force, to become a test pilot, as I said, you have to be a fighter pilot. You have to be on the top of your academy class, and you have to apply for it. And then they actually you can't apply for it. The Air Force calls you to be part of a selection, and only 1 or 2 people every year get selected. So I had just come from a very hard selection where I had to go for 2 weeks and do interviews and fly and show my competence, also my knowledge in engineering, in math, physics, aerodynamics, and so I just thought that, hey, it cannot be much different than that, and so I just trusted that if I was the right person and I put everything on the scale, then maybe I had a chance. Honestly, to be completely honest with you, when I applied, I did put everything on the table. I did. However, I thought that I didn't have a chance because the way I applied, everybody else did the same thing. You know, those 8,420 people that applied, they put everything they had on the table. So what were the chances? You know, I thought, hey, at least I'm doing it. At least I'm competing against the best people in Europe. At least I'm trying. You know, I will never. If I don't try, I will always regret it. If I try and I don't make it, well, at least I would have tried.
Well, I think that's a very important lesson, that obviously you have to make an effort, and you have to try to at least, it's that old thing about the lottery. Keeps complaining to God, why won't you let me win the lottery? And God says, meet me halfway and at least buy a ticket. So you have to actually try and make an effort if you actually want to get somewhere. So now, you get selected. Who trains you? And were you trained by ESA? Were you trained by the Russians? Were you trained by the Americans? What actually happened?
Wow, all of the above. Let's start from the beginning. So after 1 year of selection, the selection process lasted exactly 1 year. I applied in May 2008, and in the middle of May 2009, 6 names that came out of that selection process, and I just happened to be one of the lucky ones that were selected. And that's the end of an adventure, because the selection process was an adventure and the beginning of another one. So now we are called astronaut candidates, and there are 6 of us, and we go to Cologne in Germany, and that's where the European Astronaut Center is. And for the first time, the European Space Agency decided to do the basic training in situ, in our own astronaut center, because until then the European astronauts had been sent to the US to become astronauts, to do their basic training. Instead, this time, with a class of 6, we stayed in Cologne, and we have trainers in Cologne whose only job is to give us the basis, so that everybody coming in from a different background could have a common source of background so that we could call ourselves astronauts. So we have 2 pilots. We have 3 engineers, we have 1 scientist, the engineers with all different backgrounds, and this basic training that we did in Cologne was so that we all kind of could come together and have a sort of basic common ground that we could all understand. And that was all done in Germany. After that, the fun part of the story starts, because now you are an astronaut, but you have to fly in space. And so it's a little bit of the waiting game, because in order to fly, you have to wait for a slot. A slot meaning a seat that will take you to the space station. I was very lucky. I was incredibly lucky, because as soon as I finished my basic training, I was assigned to a flight. As a matter of fact, I was assigned 1 month before I finished my basic training. And so that's when I began. I began flying all over the world to train for my flight. So I came to Houston, where I am right now. Right now, I'm sitting in an office in the Public Affairs Office of Houston, of the Johnson Space Center. I came to the Johnson Space Center. I started training here, and then I would regularly fly to Russia, to Star City near Moscow, to train on the Russian segment and on the Soyuz. Then I would be sent to Montreal in Canada to train on the robotic arm. Then I would be sent to Tsukuba in Japan to train on the Japanese module and the Japanese spacecraft. And then I would go back to Germany to train some more on the European module, on the European spacecraft, the European experiments, and so on. All of that for 2.5 years.
So what you're trying to say is that when you get selected, I'm sure that you probably remember the day that you got the news. It's probably something that will stick with you forever. You got assigned a mission that wasn't just a regular, let's go up for 3 or 4 days and come back to Earth. You got like the big one. You got, how long did you spend in space?
166 days.
166 days. That's a long time to spend in space. And obviously, while you were there, you had several crews come through the doors. Is that correct?
So let me take one step back for a second. You said you didn't get to one of those missions where you just go up for 3 or 4 days and come back. There are no simple missions where you go up for 3 or 4 days and come back.
Well, it depends. We had a South African who did go up for 4 days to the International Space Station, Mark Shuttleworth, and he did buy a ticket, although, to his credit, he did learn to speak Russian. He did learn to do all his own experiments, he could have flown the craft himself because he didn't want to just be what you call a space tourist. He really, I mean, this is that was his thing. Maths and science was his big thing, and he took it very, very seriously. And obviously, when he came back to South Africa, he launched many math and science initiatives and that type of thing. But you spent 166 days, is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. And what you just said yourself, yes, Shuttleworth and many others, they did buy a ticket to go to the space station. We call them space participants to distinguish them from professional astronauts that make this their career. But you ask him or any other space participant about their experience, and I believe that there is nothing normal about even going up there as a tourist. It's really out of this world.
I'll take your word for that. So now they get you into the space station, and you've been training all over the world to repair things, and they think, well, why don't we get Luca to go outside of the space station and repair some stuff? So you get to do spacewalks, and of course, you also set a record for being the youngest astronaut to do a spacewalk. Is that correct?
I'm not sure that I'm the youngest astronaut to do a spacewalk. I didn't research that. I'm not very much into those kind of things. I bet you can Google it. I was the youngest, the youngest USOS astronaut to do a long duration mission. That is true for sure. Actually, Sasha Misurkin, my crewmate, was the youngest Russian to do a long duration mission, and I was the youngest Westerner to do a long duration mission. When you train for a long duration mission, we call them expeditions. You train for a lot of things. You train for maintenance. Yes, we have to be able to maintain the space station because it's a very big spacecraft flying in the most unforgiving environment. So we have a lot of maintenance to do, both preventative and corrective. However, the core business of what we do on the space station is science, and we do a lot of science every week, and that's really what takes most of our time every week is installing experiments, conducting them, being part of the experiments for physiology. We're also the guinea pigs on many of the experiments. Spacewalking, although is one of the most exciting and glorious and exhilarating experiences, it's really it depends on many things. It can be that it could be that you're just lucky, and it just happens that a specific spacewalk with a specific task needs to be performed while you're in orbit, and so you are on the space station. This task arrives, and there you are. You've been ready for it, and so you go out and you go out the door and perform a spacewalk. It could be that there is an emergency, and because of the nature of the emergency, you just have to go outside in order to for safety and for maintaining the space station. So there are several reasons why you could be going out the door for a spacewalk. I consider myself very lucky. There was a task that just happened to be available at the right place at the right time. I just happened to be there when this spacewalk became available, and I did too. So I consider myself incredibly lucky and privileged to be able to do that. Because for me, when I think about an astronaut, I do think even though I spend most of my days on the space station wearing a polo shirt like this and shorts, to me an astronaut is more the guy in the big bulky white suit doing a spacewalk.
Yeah. Okay, so I mean, we obviously get the idea that you're doing science on the space station. Sometimes you have to use your training, for example, your plumbing skills, because if the toilet packs up, that's probably the last place out of Earth you would want to have a problem with the toilet. And one of our other colleagues that we spoke to, he said that they were on the space station and literally after being there for 2 or 3 days, there was a problem with the actual toilet, and they had to get to actually repair it as a matter of urgency, because that's not the kind of thing you want to have problems with. And then, of course, you have things that might hit the space station from the outside, and then you have to do routine repairs and that type of thing, because there could be problems that could result if you don't maintain the space station. But now you were doing a spacewalk, and something I would like to say historical happened, because it's never happened to anyone before. And if you can just take us very slowly through the account of what actually happened, what was going on through your mind, because from a problem-solving point of view, and from what I can understand what happened, you were very calm about the whole thing. But it could have turned out to be something quite nasty.
You sure can. I mean, every emergency can come out two ways: a good way and a bad way. So I'm here talking about it. So obviously, in my case, it went well, which is I'm very happy about that. So what happened on that day? It was July 16th of 2 years ago, 2013, and I was out for my second EVA, my second extravehicular activity or spacewalk, and I had just finished my first task. I was about 45 minutes into the EVA, and I finished my first task, which was I was connecting some cables that were going to bring power and data from the US side to the Russian side. And part of the task was actually sort of getting myself stuck inside a little hole between three different modules. So if you can imagine three cylinders at 90 degrees, they all attach, and then you have space in between. I stuck myself inside that hole because I had to evaluate the capability of performing actions inside that condition. And when I say I stuck myself inside it, it's this big bulky suit with the big backpack in the back. So it's kind of it was an interesting situation, and I did my evaluation, and as I was coming out of this position, I felt water in the back of my helmet. Now, we have a lot of water in the spacesuit because it's the cooling system that keeps us basically alive. It's an active cooling system. We have water circulating inside our spacesuit, and we wear a special garment which is called LCVG, liquid cooling venting garment. It's what takes the heat out of our skin through this water that is circulating at a very low temperature, close to zero, about 1 or 2 degrees above zero, above freezing. And this water comes out of the backpack where it's circulating by a pump. Now, so the water is fundamental to keep us alive. However, it should not be inside the suit. It should not be inside the helmet. It should always be only inside the tube. So when I felt the water in the back of my head, and I have a lot of sensitive area that can feel.
It's like a solar panel of sensitivity.
So it's a good thing that I don't have hair, because if I had hair, it would have gotten wet slowly, and if I had a big mass of hair, and maybe I wouldn't notice. But this way, I just felt it right away. I'm like, oops, there's water. And I asked the question to the ground, like, I feel water in my helmet, and I don't think it's my own sweat. Because it could be, you're sweating a lot, and it could be that it just accumulates, but it didn't feel like I was sweating that much. Not until then. So the ground, of course, this has never happened before, and this emergency this situation or this condition has not even been thought possible. So they come back to me and they're asking questions. Where do you think it could come from? Could it come from your drinking bag? Because we have a drinking bag right here with a straw, and we have a bite valve that we can bite and suck water so that we can keep hydrated during the EVA. Because we stay outside for 6 to 7 hours, and that's a long time without drinking. So we had this, and and I'm looking at it, and I'm like, I don't think it's coming from there. But and they have more questions like, do you feel a leak in your LCVG? And I said, I feel dry. I don't feel anything strange. So it just feels I just feel it in the back of my head. And then at one point, I actually saw a bubble of water floating in front of my face, and I sucked it and tasted it. And to this day, I don't know if it was a good idea, but
I like that.
Hey, I'm a test pilot. I'm gonna try everything. So, about 27 minutes into this whole ordeal, Chris Cassidy, who was the astronaut that was together outside with me, in the meantime, he had come and he was looking through his helmet into my helmet, and then around that point, he's like, "Okay, look, I think I see the water. I think it's trickling in front of your skull cap. So yeah, I see it." And I'm like, "Oh yeah, I feel it." And my concern was that it would go inside my ears, and just like when you are in the shower and you're singing to yourself, and you have a drop of water that gets into your ear, and all at once you can only hear yourself from one side, which may be a good thing. But my concern was that the water would go inside my ears, and I couldn't hear anymore, and it would be a nuisance, because then you cannot hear the ground, you cannot hear your crew members. So that was my only concern. I was not worried at all about my life. I was like, this is gonna be. I was like, oh darn it, this is gonna be annoying, or they're gonna send me back, and they're gonna stop my EVA, which I'm enjoying so much. So about 27 minutes into the situation, they told me, all right, Luca, the consensus down here is for you to go inside. You go back to the airlock. We're going to terminate the EVA, which is a nice, slow way to stop an EVA. And then Chris is going to join you after you finish putting everything nicely in place. And the reason why Chris couldn't come with me at that point is that our cables were routed different. We have safety tethers that prevent from what happened in the movie Gravity, for people to get lost in space. So we have these safety tethers that keep us attached to the space station, but you have to route them along the way. And ours were routed opposite sides. So Chris had to go one way, I had to go the other way. So we separated. I'm starting to go back. And I like to say that problems are like cherries. They always come at least 2 at the same time, usually 3. And so just like cherries, I was in a point when I was translating back to the airlock. You don't just jump from one place to another. You have to follow a very specific path, because there are obstacles along the way. There are antennas, there are experiments, there are things that you don't want to touch, you don't want to damage, or things that could damage your spacesuit, which would be even worse in many ways. And so you have to follow a very specific path. Now, in order to navigate this path, I had to go upside down. And as I went upside down, the sun set. So this may sound strange to you, but when the sun sets in orbit, it's not like when you are down there in Cape Town and you're looking at the water and you're like, oh, look at the beautiful sunset. Wow, wonderful. When the sun sets in orbit, it's like, oh, look, the sun is setting. Okay, it's set. It's done. It happens. It happens in a few seconds, and it goes from a lot of light to no light whatsoever. There is no light. There is no refraction, and all you have is 2 little lights that you have on your helmet, which make a cone of light about this big.
That's scary. Yeah.
And at the same time, as the sun set, the water went over my eyes and into my ears, and it covered my nose. So all at once, I couldn't breathe through my nose. I couldn't see anything, and I was also kind of lost because I was upside down and I couldn't see the direction I was supposed to go to. So so let's recap. It's dark. I'm outside by myself, and the water is going over my eyes and inside my nose, so it's hard to breathe. And so I call Chris, and he cannot hear me. So I'm also isolated. Not the best situation you want to be in outer space.
Definitely not. Oh.
Yeah, no, it wasn't good. And I have been happier.
So what did you do?
Well, I can tell you what I did not do was make the situation worse, which is you could panic. That's you know, if you're not trained, if you lose your mind, you know, you have this water over your head, your face, your nose. You may think I'm just gonna release the helmet. That's a very bad idea. Don't do that. This is for the kids out there. When you become astronauts and you're out in outer space, do not open your helmet. So,
what would happen if you did?
Lots of bad things. None of it is good. So, so in outer space there is no pressure. There is and there is also the surface temperature is it's minus 250 degrees Celsius when you are in the shade, and it's it's minus 180 and plus 150 when you are in the sun. So, and none of those conditions are really good for humans. So you want to stay inside your spacesuit. So at that moment, I realized when I called for help and I couldn't hear my voice coming out, I realized that I was isolated, and so I just had to find a way to navigate back to the airlock. And in the meantime, I was thinking, okay, I can still breathe through my mouth. What is the next step? What if the water fills up my helmet and it covers my mouth and I can't breathe? What can I do in order to prevent myself from drowning in space? Which would sound really bad on the newspapers in Italy. You know, Italian astronaut drowns in space. Not, so I was very concerned about it. So we have different valves in our spacesuit. We have a small valve on the side of the helmet that we can open, and it creates a flow in order to evacuate contaminated atmosphere from the inside to the outside. And also we have a bigger valve on the center of our suit. Now that is a big hole. If you open it, you only have about 30 minutes to go back inside before you completely run out of air. So these are all options that I was thinking through as I frantically tried to find my way back. And there are some cool videos that they collected on the ground of me searching with my gloved hand for the right handles to find my way back. What I used at that point to figure out what the direction was, I used a little bit of tension that comes from a spring that is attached to our safety tether. It kind of gives you a little bit of, it's about 1.5 pounds of pull, and I used that to kind of understand which was the direction to go. Now the problem with that is that if you wrap yourself with the safety tether, it's a very dangerous situation because I couldn't see it. I couldn't see anything. But I was lucky. I didn't get wrapped up in the safety tether. I found my way back to the airlock, and then things got a lot better because the airlock has the light on. And so the moment I opened the cover, I could see through the light, through the water. I could see what I had to do. I still couldn't hear anything, and there's an interesting video with audio that I saw only a couple of weeks ago, and I wasn't aware of it. And this audio video shows me right outside the airlock, and I'm waiting for instructions because I was supposed to go inside the space station after Chris. That was the choreography. Chris going in first and me going in second. So I was waiting for instructions, and from the ground they told me, Luca, we want you to go inside first. And get situated, and then Chris will close the thermal cover and lock the airlock. And my answer at that point was, hey, I have a lot of water in my... Hey, Abby! Surprise!
We're gonna drag Abby into the conversation in a few minutes. We just want to hear the end part of what you have to say.
Yes. So at that point, when they told me, Luca, we want you to go back inside, my answer was, I have a lot of water in my helmet. I guess I guess I couldn't really hear what they were saying, and so I was trying to figure it out. But in the end, I went inside first. I was able to lock the inner umbilical to the spacesuit, and I didn't know at the time, but at that point we had already solved the situation, because the malfunction in the suit was connected to a water pump inside the spacesuit, and when I physically switched off the pump, I stopped pumping water inside my helmet. But at the time, I didn't know. Anyway, that's the meat of the story of the EVA. But let me add one thing about it.
Yes.
Even though it's a lot of people ask me about the EVA because it's very noticeable. It's very it's something that caught a lot of attention and a lot of imagination. One thing that bugs me is that I was in space for 166 days, and a lot of people tend to reduce my whole experience into those 27 minutes. That is not how the story went. We did a lot of things in those 6 months, a lot of excellent, innovative science, technology, and the EVA is just one part of it. And the way I see it, and I think this is a shared opinion here in the space community, is that the EVA that day was a very good day because we learned a lot of things. And to me, we have 3 reasons to say that it was a good day. The first reason is that right now I'm talking about it, so to me it's a very good day. The second reason is that we found out a problem that we had not thought about. Now, that is very important to understand. It is a limit of human imagination. We can only think of things that we know. We cannot. We have no way to imagine things that we have no idea about. And this will come up also later if we talk about alien life and things like that. And so the fact that we found out a problem that we hadn't imagined, I think is a very good thing. Now, that problem, that specific emergency, will never happen again, I can guarantee you. And the third thing that made it a good day for me is that we proved that the instructions that we get, the training that we get, is so good that we can solve problems that were not conceived, that were not thought possible. But we're still capable of solving those problems because of all the experience that we get from our training.
Okay, but now here's the interesting part. We've got a special guest who's joined us. We have Abby Harrison, who is Astronaut Abby. You two actually have a connection, and that's the one thing that I appreciate about Luca. When it comes to role models in the math, science, technology environment, you want someone who's going to encourage young people to get involved and to inspire them to get involved. And Luca did something quite unusual. Abby is very keen on being one of the members of the team that are going to be going to Mars. And it is her mission to get there. She has been to probably every single space camp there is. She has hosted various events. She's got good connections at NASA. And Luca invited Abby to the launch of his Soyuz, from Russia, I assume, from Star City?
From Kazakhstan.
From Kazakhstan, sorry. And she went to, I mean, it was quite I'll be interviewing Abby about all of that as well, but it was quite a mission just to get there, because obviously there's a certain monetary value that takes place in order to make yourself available to get there. And she had the privilege of actually seeing Luca's Soyuz rocket take off into space, and obviously that added to her excitement of getting involved in all her space endeavors. And she's a huge advocate for young girls and women in STEM activities, such as science, technology, engineering and maths, and she's got lovely websites where she promotes all the space knowledge and tries to get young kids involved in these sorts of activities. And we'll still be spending some time there. But Luca, what prompted you to invite Abby to come and see the launch?
She did.
Her personality.
Yeah, Abby is an amazing, smart, motivated young woman, and she has something that I don't have, and it's apart from the hair. Their young age and connection to people her own age. She has the capability to communicate in a way that I cannot do because we belong to different generations, and so she is my official spokesperson for all the younger people out there that find science fascinating, space, engineering, math. She can approach them with their own language, and she is aware of what their problems are, what their lives are right nowadays, and so she's a much better spokesperson than I can ever be.
Well, I mean, I must just say that for Abby, the big problem is that you were talking about how your experience in space was tackled very well because you were all well prepared for all the different scenarios that could happen and all the training. But if Abby's going to Mars, there's a lot of stuff that's going to happen that you can't train for, we don't know about, and that's going to make her mission that much more exciting.
Is it a question for me or for Abby?
Well, I'm making a statement, but I mean, obviously there's a certain game plan in terms of when they want to land on Mars, but there's a good chance that with ex-South Africans like Elon Musk with SpaceX, that anything could be accelerated. There could even be a commercial trip to Mars. I mean, I know there are a couple of projects, the Mars One project, that type of thing, but you know, people are talking about 25 years from now. It might happen in the next 10 years. It might happen in the next 8 years. You know, who knows how ambitious many of these companies are when it comes to commercial space travel.
That's what you just said is a very ambitious statement, but let me put my point of view in, and that's it. It doesn't matter if it takes 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, or 25 years. I believe that we will go to Mars when we are ready to do it in such a way that it will be minimizing the risks that will still be there. But we still have to learn a lot of things before Abby puts down her boots on Mars and leaving her print. I have no doubt that it will happen one day, and I hope it's Abby and 100 other people that get to do it. It probably will not be my generation, but to me it doesn't matter. We work for mankind. We don't work for the individuals. My job right now is to let people like Abby and her generation take those steps. Will it take 10 years? Will it take 15 years? I don't think the time frame is so important. What is important is that first of all that we do it. That there is a political global will to take the steps necessary today to invent the machines that will let us go beyond low Earth orbit. I think that we are in a good place right now. There is a lot of interest in space and in space exploration. I think it will happen when we are ready for it. When we are happy with our systems, when we are happy with our technology, when we are absolutely happy that we can send humans to Mars and get them back safely and gain a lot out of it in terms of knowledge, in terms of science, in terms of technology, in terms of just furthering the human space in its endeavor in this universe.
Okay, now I know we are running a little bit short on time, so I want to open the floor to some questions. I know we've got people from all over the world that would like to ask questions. We've had some people email questions. This is Morgan's class, the grade 2s. If you can give very brief answers to these. Alexandria wants to know, it says, I've always wanted to be in space. Do you miss your family when you are on the space station?
Yes.
Okay, that was a very short answer. I'm sure you do, and you mentioned to me earlier at some stage that you do kind of have some sort of video conferencing which allows you to speak to them and connect as well. And then Chloe and Nick want to know, what do you eat in space?
Lots of different things. We have a space menu that is made up of a lot of different things. It's quite varied. We have rehydrated food which needs to be it's dehydrated and needs to be rehydrated, like vegetables and different kinds of pasta or different kinds of meats. Or eggs. You just add water, and with a little bit of patience, it comes back almost as good as it was originally. If you're not patient, it's a little crunchier, but that's okay. And, we have also thermostabilized food. It's just prepackaged and ready to eat. You just warm it up in one of the food warmers that we have on orbit. And also there is a Russian menu with lots of different canned food. So different soups, different kinds of meats and fish. We also have a European menu, which varies from time to time. It's also canned or thermostabilized. Some astronauts take up their own food. And we can also grab off-the-shelf things that can stay in orbit for an extended time, like power bars, granola bars, all those kind of things are also available. All those things are better than anything I can cook. So I wasn't
But now I take it that you try and avoid things like very hot chili, because that's not the kind of thing that you want to have on the space station. I mean, you don't want to invite problems while you're up there.
I got some chili from New Mexico while I was on the space station. My wife sent it to me, so I actually enjoyed some of it. We do have fajitas, beef fajitas with peppers, and so I mixed in some of this chili, and the result is the same as on the Earth.
Okay. Here's some classic questions. Joshua wants to know, do you have a secret room for your spacesuits?
Secret rooms?
Yeah, a secret room for your spacesuits. Maybe you do. I don't know. Do you have like a special cabinet that you hide your, like, a spy movie, you push the button and then a secret compartment opens up and the spacesuits go, or is it just hanging out there for everyone to just put on when they need to?
I saw. That's Batman. He must be confused. We have two kinds of spacesuits. Or actually, we have three kinds of spacesuits on the space station. We have the Sokol spacesuits. They are the ones that we use to go from the ground to the station and from the station to the ground, and they're only used inside the Soyuz spacecraft. And believe it or not, they are just stowed. They are deflated and stowed on the side of the Soyuz, and they're ready for us to put them on in case we have to do an emergency comeback. Then we have the extravehicular activity suits. We have two kinds. We have the USOS kind and the Russian one, and they're called EMU or Orlan, and they are usually stowed in the airlock, and they just look like people. They're attached to the wall, and they just stand there empty, and they're ready for us to use them in case we need to.
Kind of like a bat suit in a secret cupboard.
How about? I didn't understand the question.
It's almost like a bat suit in a secret cupboard. So technically you were correct. That there are special secret cupboards to hide your suits. Now,
yeah, we don't have secret.
Now, Kim wanted to ask the question. Kim's out in the Ivory Coast. She says in the movie Gravity, they had problems reading the instrument boards because of language differences. So obviously you learn the difference between eject and stop and go. You obviously need to learn to understand any instrumentation. For example, in the Soyuz capsule, I'm sure that's all in Russian. Did you have to learn to speak Russian?
Yes, sir. I had 3 months to learn Russian.
Как дела? Как себя? Хорошо.
No, я говорю достаточно хорошо, да.
Ah, very good. I was just checking that he does speak the language. Because, you know, I'm also in training. I'm just a little bit further behind than most. And then, of course, Jenna wants to know, how do you stay physically fit?
Ah, that's a very good question. You mean on the ground or on the station?
Well, I must just tell them that on the ground, Luca doesn't only just exercise. He exercises in a very extreme way. He takes part not just in an Ironman competition, but like the World Championships of Ironman, which is something like swim 5 continents, cycle 6, and then round it twice. I mean, it's insane distances, and he manages to, and he actually completed it, which is in itself a real big deal. But the fact that he took part in the World Championships against serious competitors means that he has quite a high level of fitness. But what did you do on the space station?
So on the space station, we have three ways to train. We have a static bicycle, which is just like the ones you find in the gym, except that it only has the pedals. You don't have a seat and you don't have handles because you don't need them in orbit. You're just floating and pedaling. Then we have a treadmill, which is it is excellent. We wear a harness so that we can attach ourselves to the floor of the treadmill, and then we can run, simulating a weight on our shoulders and on our basin. And the third way we exercise is called ARED, which means Advanced Resistive Equipment Device, or exercise device, which is basically a huge machine with which we can lift weights. We can do weightlifting, and if you can imagine doing weightlifting in a weightless environment, is amazing what our engineers can do.
Sure. Okay, so now we're going to open the floor over here to some questions. I'm sure some of them would like to ask. So I'm just going to turn on the lights so that you can see them a little bit better. Let's see. There we go. We've got some lights. Right. Who would like to ask a question?
Now you guys.
Daniela, got a question. What would you like to ask, Daniela?
What's it like to be in space?
What's it like to be in space? I think that's a very common question.
It is a very common question and an incredibly hard one to answer. But the best answer I can give, Daniela, is that have you seen the cartoons with Peter Pan?
Have you seen cartoons with Peter Pan? No? You've seen Peter Pan in the movie? With Wendy and Tinkerbell and all them? A little bit. Okay, she kind of knows what you're talking about.
So, but imagine. So, if you can imagine when you dream that you're just floating, like a dream. You know, you don't need wings, you don't need an airplane. You're flying, but because you don't have any weight, just like the pixie dust in Peter Pan. It's almost like magic. So, to me, the idea is really like that. It's like this magic dream, but it's better because you don't have to wake up.
Wow. I mean, I did a small calculation that if you need 3 sprinkles of pixie dust to lift up Tinkerbell, I need 3 garbage bags full just to get me to travel across the room. But I suppose it's all relative. Okay, any other questions? I know you guys travel all the way from, where do you travel from? Are you from Cape Town? All right, so let's hear your question. I don't know if you can see them. There we go. We're going to move it a little bit that way. There we go, in the middle. Don't be shy.
My son wants to know, how do explosions take place in space?
Ah, how do explosions take place in space?
Explosions.
Can explosions take place in space?
So, well, hopefully there will be no explosions on the space station. Hopefully.
But outside the space station, can it happen?
Yes, I did. I actually witnessed an explosion. I saw an international ballistic missile being launched and exploding in the upper atmosphere, and it just it creates a huge bubble of debris that it's visible for miles and miles away.
Wow. So things can explode in space.
Oh yes.
Okay. But now I've got one question which I know you probably get all the time, but it's important to ask. Have you ever seen any unusual things in space that could be connected to aliens And do you believe in aliens?
So, to answer the first question, the weirdest thing I saw in space was my own face in the morning when I shave.
And you recovered, so that can't be too bad.
Oh man, it was hard, but yes, I did recover. So that's the first answer. No, I had never seen anything that you could call a UFO. Never, not in my 15 years as a pilot, not in my 5 years as an astronaut. I apologize. Sorry.
You haven't signed an agreement to keep very quiet about it.
There is no such thing. We would be very excited to talk about anything strange that we see, because the thing is that if you see something strange, you don't know what it is, and so the first thing that you would do as a reaction would be to call ground, to say, Houston, I see something strange and I don't know what it is. Oh wait, it's an alien monster. So it would be very obvious that we saw something strange. The fact that it's never happened to me, it's kind of an indication that nobody has ever seen anything out of the norm. Other than that, the second question, do I believe in alien life? I'm going to give you my typical spiel if you have a couple of seconds. So if you ask me if I believe in the little green man with no nose and antennas, the answer is definitely no. I don't believe there are those. I don't think they orbit the Earth to install probes on our bodies. I'm pretty certain of that. However, when you consider how vastly immense and the scale of the universe, I think that the only limit to what is out there is our imagination, because we as humans have the tendency to classify everything. We always want to classify things. So we even made a definition for what life is. We say that life has to be organic, it has to be cellular, it has to be has to have reproduction, it has to have a DNA. We have all these definitions that make up what we call life. Now imagine on a different planet something that is completely different from what we call life, but is comparable to what we call life. Maybe something that is not organized in cells, something that doesn't reproduce, something that is not is not based on carbon and water, but maybe based on methane. Who knows? Something that we cannot imagine because the limit is our imagination, but it is comparable to what life is. Now we will call this something different. We will call it John, but if you just believe in the imagination, in the possibility of something completely different, then I think that rather than possible, I would say it's probable that there is something out there.
Okay, all right. We've got one more question in the audience here, and we've got a few more, but we'll see how much time we've got, and we've got a couple on Twitter as well. What was your question?
What happens if you sneeze in space?
This is obviously the tough one. If you are inside the space station, sneezing is probably not much of a big deal. It's unfortunate for the person that's on the other side of the space station because of the way the snot will travel. But if you are wearing a helmet, that's a little bit more tricky. Then you will see aliens and green things floating around.
Yeah, and if it's a really powerful sneeze, it will probably splatter the inside of your helmet.
And of course, when you have an itchy nose, how do you scratch it?
It's really tough. Of course, you cannot reach inside and scratch your nose. And somehow, the moment you install the helmet, that's where your nose starts itching. It's inevitable. However, we have a Valsalva, a little piece of foam, so that we can plug our nose in case we have to compensate, to do the Valsalva maneuver. And usually what I do is, if you have a big nose like mine, and I'm lucky enough to have a very nice big Italian nose, I can usually use it to scratch my nose. Use the piece of foam.
There we go. Something practical. All right. There was another question over here. Zara, what do you want to ask?
What university did you go to?
What university did you go to? That was a good question.
I went to the Italian Air Force Academy, which is near Naples. I have a degree from the University of Naples called Federico II. And then I went to Toulouse in France, where there is a university called Institut Supérieur de l'Aéronautique et l'Espace, which is ISAE, and I got my master's degree from there.
Good question. What does Earth look like from space? Okay, what does Earth look like from space? I know from the cupola, I've got some photographs, and maybe while you're talking, I'm going to put some photographs on so that people can actually see some of the things that you were looking at while you were in space. Yep, I'm going to be able to share that one. Let's try that again. Share screen. And here we go. So you want to talk us through that? What does Earth look like from space?
Well, hey, yeah, I remember that picture. So this is a picture taken in the very first few weeks. So I'm in cupola, and I'm holding one of the cameras with the 400 millimeters lens, and I was hunting for a target. And what you see right there on the left side, you see the Soyuz spacecraft. That happens actually to be the spacecraft that I came up and down with. And obviously we are flying over some ocean, and I wouldn't be surprised if what we're doing is flying towards Africa, because I do see some land at the bottom. I do not remember what it is, but what we do is we hunt for targets, for locations that we want to take a picture of.
Okay, now I'm going to try something. Let's load another photograph. People probably want to know what Cape Town looks like from space. So I'm going to load that photo, and hopefully you'll be able to see it as well. This is just obviously for the benefit of everyone else. Are you seeing the photograph on your screen?
No, I see lots of black. That's what the ocean looks like at night.
It probably does. That was the night shot. So now I'll load up the day shots. Let's have a look. Here we go. Do any of you recognize that part of South Africa, Cape Town?
Yeah, I certainly do. So we like to, if we're going over Cape Town, usually what's happening is that we have an orbit that goes along the Atlantic Ocean, then we skirt the tip of Africa, of Southern Africa, and then we go back up along the Indian Ocean, and usually then we go into the night. So we see there's a lot of ocean into those orbits. So we really like to see a little bit of land in our pictures. And obviously this is you can see the sunglind on the side on the right side of the image, illuminating sea currents. And then you can also you can also guess the currents, because you see how the sand is swept by on the coast of Eastern Africa.
Okay, we'll try one more photo here, because this one, it obviously isn't this photo in particular, but something along the lines of this photo. This was actually, and probably something that you're very proud of, this was voted as one of the most significant photos ever taken. And I'm going to, well, it wasn't this one, but something like this. Perhaps it was this photo. You took a selfie while you were in space.
No, it's not this one.
It wasn't. I didn't think it was this one, but you did take a selfie in space, and that was voted something like one of the 50 most important images of the year, or something like that.
Well, the image itself was not very important. What became important was the fact that I sent it down via Twitter, and I called it a selfie, and the word selfie became part of the American dictionary in 2013. So when I took that selfie, I also posted that that was I wrote, try to beat these 4 locations for a selfie, and so that's how it became popular, because that's a pretty hard to beat location.
Are you trying to tell us that you invented the term selfie?
Absolutely not. I use the term selfie.
Just checking, I'm just checking.
I only abused it. I did not invent it at all.
Oh, you use it, but now obviously, while you're in space, a lot of astronauts recently, obviously Chris Hadfield took it to the next level, but starting to use social media, using Facebook and Twitter to obviously promote the excitement and the joy of space to as many people as possible. And now more so than ever before, you can join Twitter accounts for many astronauts. You can have Google Hangouts with astronauts. You can have astronauts in training and astronauts in one Google Hangout. You can have potential astronauts who are watching the astronauts in training and the actual astronauts, all happening with simple social media. So I think that from a STEM point of view, there's no greater time now than to promote STEM topics using things like social media.
By all means, it's a great instrument, and you know, it used to be that in the 60s, astronauts were popular, they were famous, people would know about their lives, they would read about them. Nowadays, it's not like that. I believe it has to be the opposite. It's astronauts that need to reach out and go and talk to people and tell kids and the younger generations and students and anybody who is willing out there to listen why what we do is so important, why we believe so much into space exploration, and certainly promote STEM for all those young students that I can see in the room and around the world.
Fantastic. All right. I know we've got one more question in the audience here, and then one question from Twitter, and then I'll have to email you a couple of questions afterwards because we've still got loads of other people who are dying to know stuff. What is your question?
Just my question is also like media related. I just wondered what Luca's views of the Red Bull Stratos.
Oh, that's actually, I was going to ask that. I'm glad you did. So what is your opinion of the Red Bull? Well, actually, it wasn't just Red Bull. We had the Google executive who did something similar, but he went even higher, jumping from the stratosphere onto Earth, or coming down to Earth in a special suit, and possibly even looking at that from an evacuation process. If you ever had to leave the space station, maybe even flying towards Earth and then actually entering Earth's atmosphere, just like Felix Baumgartner and the Google executive did. I mean, that could be something that's on the cards. I wouldn't want to tempt it. I mean, you've done a bit of parachuting yourself, so maybe you could comment on that.
Yeah, well, as a skydiver, I think that what he did is fantastic. I would not skydive from the space station. I would think that the re-entry would be a little bit hot, especially when when you get surrounded by plasma at 1500 degrees Celsius. It would be hot to stand. But this is what I think. Even though it's a little bit of a stunt, in a way, it did create attention. It did drive people to look at something that looked like space and ask more questions about it. So in that sense, anything that drives people's imagination, I always say, why not? I mean, it's another. Just like a movie like Gravity, operationally, there is nothing in that movie that is operationally valid, but it inspired a lot of people to look up and say, oh, what do we have? A space station? Do we still have astronauts up there? Yes, we do. So my answer to that is, why not? Everything that draws attention is always good publicity. So even Felix Baumgartner jump, it's not really related to space, but it is related to the exploration of human capabilities and limits, so why not?
Okay, we're going to give you one final question, and it's from Twitter. We have Sambul. It was Sambul Hamid. I'm not sure where Sambul is from, but he would like to know what is your next mission, or what would you like to accomplish before your retirement in 75 years' time?
Oh, wow. Well, so I have I divide things into projects and dreams. So my project is to fly again on the space station for another expedition. continue to give my contribution to the space exploration through that, because this is my time. It's what I can do that. And before my retirement in 75 years' time, you know, I like anybody else, I have my own dreams. I wouldn't mind being on the same spacecraft with Abby and leave my own footprint on Mars or the Moon or an asteroid. I'd be happy to leave my footprint anywhere. And if I can leave my small footprint, even on the Earth, I would be happy even with that.
Wow. Okay. Well, Luca, I want to say thank you. So let me come into the picture. I've been hiding away for most of it. Am I in? No, I'm coming through. I just wanted to say thank you so much for giving us your time, for explaining all those things to us, for the way you answered the questions. I certainly know that I'm even more inspired and more excited about space after hearing what you have to say. There is a good chance that you might go up again. Is that correct?
Well, I'm 38 years old, so I would say that I'm kind of young to retire. So
27 plus that. But you know what? I think that if you still have a chance to go up again, it would be quite awesome to have a Google Hangout while you are on the space station. So we'll be keeping in contact. Don't worry. And then of course Abby has granted us the first Google Hangout from Mars, so we're very excited about that as well. All right. Didn't you know that? We'll talk about that later. All right. So we want to say thank you very much for your time, for all the things that all the questions that you answered. We had people from India, from Ivory Coast, from the USA, we had from Canada, we had from South Africa, and a whole bunch of other countries that I haven't managed to mention. And we had a whole bunch of people watching it on YouTube as well. So it was very, very exciting. So we would like to say thank you very much and bid you farewell. And we're going to get the audience over here just to say goodbye. Say bye. And we'll catch up soon. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you for your patience and your attention. Thank you. Bye-bye.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.